The storm rolled in from the eastern hills with the kind of fury that made even the pigs huddle together in nervous silence. And Jonas Zimmerman was halfway across his muddy yard when he saw her stumbling up the road, green skin slick with rain. One hand clutched to her side where blood mixed with the downpour. Lightning split the sky, and the pig farmer pulled the orc girl inside before she could refuse, his calloused hands finding her shoulders as thunder shook the timbers of his modest farmhouse. She tried to pull back, eyes wide with something between fear and defiance, but her legs gave out and Jonas caught her weight against his chest, kicking the door shut behind them as the storm unleashed its full wrath upon the valley. "Easy now," he said, guiding her toward the rough-hewn table that dominated his kitchen. "You are bleeding badly. Let me help." She hissed through her tusks, trying to stand on her own, but her strength had clearly abandoned her. Up close, Jonas could see she was younger than he had first thought, maybe 20 at most, with fierce amber eyes and black hair plastered to her skull by the rain. Her leather armor was torn at the side where something had gotten through, and when she pressed her hand tighter to the wound, fresh blood welled between her fingers. "I do not need human help," she managed, but her voice was weak. "You need someone's help, and I am the only one here." Jonas moved quickly, years of tending injured livestock giving him a steady competence as he pulled down his medical supplies from the shelf above the stove. "Sit, please." The orc girl looked at him for a long moment, calculation warring with desperation in her expression. Finally, she sank into the chair, her breathing shallow and pained. Jonas lit 2 more lanterns, driving back the gloom of the storm-darkened afternoon, and knelt beside her. "I need to see the wound," he said gently. "May I?" She hesitated, then nodded once, sharp and quick. Her hand fell away and Jonas carefully peeled back the torn leather and the blood-soaked shirt beneath. The gash was deep, running from just below her ribs across her side, the kind of wound a sword or axe might make. Not a clean cut, though. Something had torn as much as sliced. "What did this?" he asked, reaching for clean water and cloth. "Bandits," she said through gritted teeth. 5 of them, on the north road." Jonas glanced up at her face. 5. They did not expect me to fight back." A ghost of grim satisfaction crossed her features. 3 will not trouble anyone again. The other 2 ran when the storm came. He believed her. Orcs were warriors. Everyone knew that, even solitary pig farmers who kept to themselves, and tried to ignore the growing tensions between humans and orc clans in the borderlands. Jonas cleaned the wound as gently as he could, but she still flinched, her fingers gripping the edge of the table hard enough that the wood creaked. "This needs stitching," he said. "I have done it before on animals. I can do it for you, but it will hurt. Everything already hurts." She met his eyes. "Do what you must." Jonas threaded his needle with steady hands, remembering the precision his mother had taught him years ago, back when she was still alive and this farm had been a livelier place. The orc girl held perfectly still as he worked, not making a sound even when the needle pierced her flesh. He stitched carefully, taking his time, and when he tied off the final knot and wrapped clean linen around her middle, she let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for minutes. "Thank you," she said quietly, almost reluctantly. "You are welcome." Jonas stood, washing his hands in the basin. "Are you hungry?" She blinked at him as if he had asked something incomprehensible. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Helping me. You are human. I am orc. We are supposed to be enemies." Jonas considered that while he built up the fire in his stove and set a pot of stew to warm. It was left over from yesterday, thick with vegetables from his garden and a bit of pork, and it would do well enough. "I have never put much stock in supposed to be," he said finally. "You were hurt. I helped. That is all." "That is not all." She shifted in the chair, watching him with a wariness that spoke of long experience with cruelty. Your people hate mine. They burn our villages and call us monsters. Why should you be different? Because I have seen what hate does. Jonas ladled stew into 2 wooden bowls. My father rode with the militia years back. He came home from the border wars angry and broken, and he died still carrying that anger. I decided I would rather raise pigs than fight in someone else's war. He set a bowl in front of her and took the seat opposite, waiting. The orc girl looked down at the food, then back at him, something shifting in her expression. "What is your name?" she asked. "Jonas Zimmerman." "I am Grash." "Well met, Grash. Now eat. You have lost a lot of blood and you need your strength." She ate slowly at first, then with increasing hunger, and Jonas found himself watching her covertly between his own bites. She had strong features, her face saved from harshness by the curve of her lips and the intelligence in her eyes. Her tusks were small, barely protruding past her upper lip, and when she caught him looking she froze, suddenly self-conscious. "I am sorry," Jonas said quickly. "I did not mean to stare. Humans always stare, usually before they throw stones or worse. I was not thinking that you looked monstrous, if that is what you are worried about. I was thinking that you must be tough as old leather to have fought off 3 bandits while wounded." Grash's expression softened fractionally. They were not good fighters, brave in a pack, cowards alone. Still, most people would have just run. "I am not most people." She finished her bowl and set it down carefully. "The storm is getting worse. I should go before it gets dark." "You can barely stand," Jonas pointed out. "And night is coming fast. The storm will rage all night by the look of it. You should stay here, rest, let that wound begin to heal." "Stay here," Grash's voice rose slightly. "In a human house, in my house, yes, I have a spare room. It is small, but the roof does not leak and the bed is clean." "You are offering me a bed?" She sounded genuinely shocked. Jonas shrugged. "What else would I do? Send you back out into that storm? You would be dead by morning, and I would have wasted good thread on those stitches." For the first time, something that might have been humor flickered across Grash's face. "Your thread is precious, then." "My mother's thread, actually. She would haunt me if I wasted it." This time Grash almost smiled, though she caught herself quickly. "I have nowhere else to go," she admitted quietly. "My clan cast me out 3 weeks ago. I have been traveling south looking for work, for anywhere that might take me, but no one wants an orc, even one willing to work for scraps." Jonas felt something tighten in his chest. He knew loneliness, knew what it felt like to be apart from others, but he had at least chosen this solitary life. Grash had had it forced upon her. "Why did they cast you out?" She looked away, jaw tight. "I helped a human child who was lost in the hills, brought her back to her village. My clan said I had brought shame, that I was weak for showing mercy to our enemies. The elders gave me until dawn to leave. That child's parents must have been grateful. They threw rocks at me and called for the militia. I barely escaped." Jonas set his bowl down with more force than he intended. "That is wrong. That is the world we live in." Grash stood slowly, one hand supporting her bandaged side. "But you are different. You are strange for a human, Jonas Zimmerman. I will take that as a compliment. Come, I will show you the room." He led her through the small house, past his own bedroom and the washroom, to the spare room at the back. It had been his mother's sewing room once, but after she died, he had put a bed in there for when his cousins visited. They had stopped visiting years ago, though, put off by his determination to remain neutral in the increasingly bitter conflicts between humans and orcs. Grash looked around the room with cautious wonder, taking in the simple bed with its wool blankets, the small window with actual glass in it, the rag rug on the wooden floor. "This is more than I expected," she said softly. "Rest," Jonas told her. "I will be in the kitchen if you need anything. Tomorrow we can figure out what comes next." He left her there and returned to clean up the dinner dishes, listening to the storm rage outside and wondering what exactly he had gotten himself into. Harboring an orc could bring trouble if anyone found out. His neighbors were not actively hostile to him, but they were suspicious of his refusal to join the human defense leagues, and they would not understand this act of charity. Still, he could not bring himself to regret pulling Grash out of the storm. The look in her eyes when she spoke of being cast out haunted him. Jonas was up before dawn, as always, storm or no storm. The rain had lessened to a steady drizzle and his pigs needed feeding. He dressed quietly and slipped outside, making his way to the pens. The pigs greeted him with their usual enthusiastic snorts and grunts, crowding around as he distributed their morning feed. He checked each animal with practiced efficiency, looking for any signs of illness or injury, then mucked out the worst of the mud from their shelters. By the time he returned to the house, the sun was rising weakly behind the clouds and Grash was sitting at his kitchen table, looking uncertain. She had clearly tried to tidy herself, her black hair pulled back from her face, but her clothes were still torn and blood-stained. "Good morning," Jonas said. "How is your side? Sore, but better." She watched him hang up his wet jacket. "I should leave soon. I have imposed enough." "You have not imposed at all, and you should rest at least another day before you go anywhere." He started preparing breakfast, slicing bread and frying eggs. "Besides, I could use help around here if you are willing. The storm made a mess of things and my back is not what it used to be." Grash frowned. "You are offering me work." "I am offering you a place to recover and a way to earn your keep while you do it if you want. No obligation. But if you are looking for work, as you said, well, I have plenty of it." She was quiet for a long moment. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why would you do this for me?" Jonas cracked another egg into the pan. "Do you want the honest answer?" "Yes. Because I am tired of being alone. Because this farm is more than one person can handle well. Because you seem like someone who has gotten a raw deal from the world and maybe deserves a bit of kindness. And because you are clearly strong and capable, and I would be a fool to turn down capable help just because you are green." He glanced over his shoulder at her. "Is that enough reasons?" Grash's expression went through several shifts before settling on something cautiously hopeful. "I am a good worker, I am strong, I learn quickly. Then we have a deal if you want it. Room, board, and fair pay. You can stay as long as you like or leave whenever you want. No strings. I do not understand you, human. Jonas, you can call me Jonas. I do not understand you, Jonas." But when he served her breakfast, she ate with less wariness than before, and when she looked at him there was a spark of something that might have been trust beginning to form. The first few days were awkward in the way of strangers learning to share space. Grash was clearly unused to comfort or generosity, and she approached every kindness with suspicion at first, as if waiting for the catch. Jonas just went about his work, including her naturally in the rhythms of the farm. She helped him repair storm damage to the pig shelters, her orc strength making short work of lifting timbers that would have taken him twice as long. She learned to mix the pig feed according to his exact specifications. She even showed unexpected gentleness with the animals, speaking to them in her own language, a series of guttural sounds that somehow sounded soothing. In the evenings they shared meals, and slowly, carefully, they began to talk. Grash told him about her clan in the northern mountains, about the harsh but honorable life there, about the strict codes that governed orc society. She spoke of her mother, a warrior who had died defending their village from a monster, and her father, a smith who had not spoken to her since her exile. Jonas told her about his own parents, about his father's bitterness and his mother's quiet strength, about how she had taught him that there was honor in growing things and caring for the land. He told her about his decision to stay on the farm after his parents died rather than selling it and moving to town, about the loneliness but also the peace he had found here. "You ever regret it?" Grash asked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the western hills. Her wound was healing well, the stitches holding clean and strong. "Staying alone like this," Jonas considered. "Sometimes. There are days when I wish I had someone to talk to, someone to share the work and the silence, but regret? No. I have built something here that is mine, something that does not depend on hating anyone or fighting anyone. That matters to me." "You are strange," Grash said, but there was warmth in her voice now, not accusation. "So you keep telling me." She smiled, a real smile that softened her whole face, and Jonas felt something shift in his chest. He had grown accustomed to her presence, he realized. More than accustomed. He looked forward to seeing her each morning, to working alongside her, to their evening conversations. The farmhouse felt less empty with her in it, less like a place where he was simply waiting for his life to pass. It was dangerous, this growing comfort. Grash was orc, he was human, and the world would not look kindly on any bond between them beyond the strictly transactional. But sitting there on the porch with the evening light turning her green skin bronze and her amber eyes reflecting the sunset, Jonas found it hard to care about what the world thought. 3 weeks after the storm, trouble came to the farm in the form of his neighbor, a wiry man named Thomas who farmed sheep 2 valleys over. Jonas was in the garden when he heard the horse approaching, and he straightened from his weeding to see Thomas riding up the path, his expression grim. "Jonas," Thomas said, dismounting. Then he saw Grash emerging from the pig barn and his hand moved toward the knife at his belt. "What in the name of all that is holy is that?" "Her name is Grash," Jonas said evenly, moving to place himself between his neighbor and the orc woman. "She works for me." "Works for you?" Thomas's voice rose. "Have you lost your mind? That is an orc, Jonas. A green skin. A monster." Grash had gone very still, her hand also moving toward her belt where Jonas knew she kept a small blade. He held up both hands, trying to project calm. "She is a person who needed help, and now she is my employee. That is all there is to it." "That is all?" Thomas looked incredulous. "Do you know what the others would do if they found out you are harboring one of them? There is talk of orc raiders in the hills, of attacks on outlying farms." "People are scared, Jonas. They are forming militia groups, and here you are breaking bread with the enemy." "She is not my enemy," Jonas said quietly. "She has been nothing but helpful and honest since she arrived. I trust her more than I trust most humans I know." Thomas stared at him as if he had spoken in tongues. "You have gone mad. That thing has enchanted you somehow, put some kind of orc spell on you." "There is no spell," Grash said, her voice cold, "and I am not a thing. But you need not worry, human. I will leave. I will not bring trouble to Jonas." "No," Jonas said sharply, turning to look at her. "You are not leaving. You have done nothing wrong, and you are not going to run because Thomas is scared of his own shadow." "Jonas, be reasonable," Thomas tried, but Jonas cut him off. "I am being reasonable." What is unreasonable is judging someone based on the color of their skin rather than their actions. Grash has worked hard here. She has helped me repair storm damage and care for my animals. She has been respectful and kind. What exactly has she done to deserve your hatred? Thomas opened and closed his mouth several times. "She is orc," he said finally, as if that explained everything. "And I am human, and you are human, and yet I trust her more than I trust you right now. So unless you have an actual complaint about something she has done, I would appreciate it if you would leave my property." The 2 men stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Thomas shook his head slowly. "I came to warn you that raiders have been spotted near the old mill." I thought you should know. Thought you might want to come stay in the village until the militia clears them out. But I see you have already chosen your side. I have chosen to judge people by their character, not their race. If that is choosing a side, then yes, I have chosen." Thomas mounted his horse without another word and rode away. Jonas watched him go, his heart hammering, then turned to find Grash looking at him with an unreadable expression. "You should not have done that," she said quietly. "Done what? Defended me. Stood against your own kind for my sake." "You will pay a price for that." Jonas shrugged, trying to project a confidence he did not entirely feel. "Then I will pay it. I meant what I said, Grash. You have earned your place here, and I am not going to turn you out because Thomas is afraid." She crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides, and before Jonas could react, pulled him into a brief, fierce hug. She was strong, her arms like bands of iron around his ribs, and she smelled of honest sweat and the lavender soap he had given her. Then she released him just as quickly, stepping back with her tusked mouth set in a determined line. "Thank you," she said. "No one has stood up for me like that before, not even my own clan." Jonas felt his face heating and looked away, suddenly awkward. "You would do the same for me?" "Yes," she said simply. "I would." The threat of raiders made the next week tense. Jonas kept his old militia sword close, the one his father had carried, and Grash fashioned herself a spear from an ash branch and the head of a broken garden tool. They worked the farm as always, but with one eye always on the tree line, watching for trouble. It came on a gray morning while Jonas was in the pig pen and Grash was drawing water from the well. He heard her shout and looked up to see 3 men emerging from the woods, rough-looking types with weapons drawn. Not orcs, he realized with a sick lurch. Human raiders, the kind that preyed on isolated farmsteads during times of chaos. Jonas vaulted the pig pen fence and ran for the house, grabbing his sword from just inside the door. By the time he reached the yard, Grash had already put 2 of the raiders on the ground, her improvised spear moving with lethal precision. The 3rd raider was circling her, a sword in his hand, and behind him Jonas could see 2 more emerging from the tree line. "Grash, behind you," he shouted. She spun, using her spear to knock the 3rd raider's sword aside, then drove her shoulder into his chest and sent him sprawling. Jonas engaged the 4th raider, their blades meeting with a sharp clang. He was rusty, his skills dulled by years of peaceful farming, but desperation gave him focus. He parried a slash, then another, then found an opening and scored a cut across the man's arm. The raider cursed and fell back. The 5th raider made the mistake of going after Grash while her back was turned. She heard him coming somehow, dropped low and swept his legs out from under him, then brought the butt of her spear down on his head with a sickening crack. The man Jonas had cut decided discretion was the better part of valor and ran for the trees. The other 3 raiders lay still. Grash stood in the center of the yard, breathing hard, blood on her hands. Jonas realized he was shaking, adrenaline making his knees weak. They stared at each other across the corpses of the men who had tried to rob or kill them, and Jonas saw something fierce and protective in Grash's amber eyes. "Are you hurt?" she asked. "No, you." "No." She looked down at the bodies. "We should bury them. It is the right thing to do, even for bandits." They spent the afternoon digging graves at the edge of the property, working in silence. It was grim work, but necessary. When they were done, Jonas said a few words over the graves, not because the raiders deserved much mercy, but because his mother had taught him that every death deserved acknowledgement. That night, neither of them wanted to be alone. Jonas made a strong herbal tea and they sat together at the kitchen table, shoulders touching, taking comfort in each other's presence. The farmhouse suddenly felt fragile, a small island of peace in a world gone hostile. Thomas was right, Jonas said quietly. I have chosen a side, your side. Grash turned to look at him, her face very close. Why? She asked, for what felt like the 100th time but with a different weight now. Jonas met her eyes and felt the truth rise up in him, undeniable. Because somewhere between pulling you out of that storm and fighting beside you today, I started caring about you, more than I should, more than is wise. Her breath caught. Jonas. I know it is impossible, he said quickly. I know the world would not understand. But you asked me why, and that is why. Because you are brave and strong and kind. Because you have made this farm feel like a home again instead of just a place I live. Because when I look at you, I do not see an orc. I see Grash, and he stopped, the words too big to say. Grash reached up and touched his face with her rough, calloused hand. I see you too, she said softly. I see Jonas, the strange human who showed me kindness when no one else would, who defended me when it would have been easier not to, who fights beside me and laughs at my jokes and makes me feel like I belong somewhere again. She leaned forward until her forehead touched his. I care for you too, more than I should, more than is wise. Jonas closed his eyes, feeling her breath on his face, the solid warmth of her presence. What do we do? He whispered. I do not know, but I know I do not want to leave. I know I want to stay here with you for as long as you will have me. Then stay. Jonas pulled back just enough to look at her properly. Stay and we will figure out the rest together. Grash smiled, fierce and beautiful, and Jonas leaned in and kissed her. Her lips were warm and slightly rough, her tusks pressing gently against his face, and she tasted like the herbal tea and something else, something uniquely her. She kissed him back with a tentative wonder that made his heart ache, her hands sliding into his hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Grash laughed shakily. I have never done that before, she admitted. Neither have I, not really, not like that. It was good. It was perfect. They sat together until the candles burned low, talking about everything and nothing, making plans that felt both fragile and precious. Grash would stay, they agreed on that. They would work the farm together and they would face whatever came as partners. It would not be easy. There would be more trouble, more judgment, more people like Thomas who could not see past old hatreds. But they would face it together. That night, Jonas lay in his bed listening to the sounds of Grash moving around in the next room, and he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Real, unvarnished hope for a future that included more than just solitary farming and slow aging. A future with someone to share the work and the silence and the joy. The next morning, he woke to find Grash already up and working, reinforcing the fence around the pig pen with new posts. She looked up when he emerged, her face lighting with a smile that made his chest feel tight. Good morning, she said. Good morning. Jonas crossed to her and kissed her cheek, feeling bold and a little giddy. You did not have to start work without me. I wanted to. I like working. And I like working here with you. She set down her hammer. Jonas, I have been thinking, if I am going to stay, truly stay, we need to be prepared for more trouble. Thomas will talk. Others will come. We need to be ready. Jonas nodded slowly. What do you suggest? Better defenses. Proper weapons. Maybe animals to warn us if someone approaches. She hesitated. And we should consider going to the village together and making it clear that I am here and that I am not leaving. If we hide, we look guilty. If we are open, we show we have nothing to be ashamed of. That is bold. I am tired of hiding. I have been hiding my whole life, first from humans who hated me and then from my own clan who said I was weak. I do not want to hide anymore, not with you. Jonas felt a surge of affection so strong it almost knocked him over. Then we will do it. We will go to the village market day together, and let people see that I have chosen you and you have chosen me and we are not ashamed. Grash took his hand, her grip strong and sure. They will not make it easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy. They spent the next week preparing, both for the trip to the village and for potential trouble. Jonas taught Grash the finer points of sword work, surprised to find she was a quick learner with excellent instincts. She taught him some of the hand-to-hand techniques her clan had used, brutal and effective movements that assumed your opponent was bigger and stronger. They sparred in the yard, their practice fights growing increasingly physical until they collapsed together in the grass, laughing and breathless. In quieter moments, they talked about the future they wanted to build. Grash spoke shyly about wanting to expand the farm, maybe add goats or chickens. Jonas admitted he had always dreamed of having children someday, then immediately worried he had overstepped. But Grash just squeezed his hand and said that orcs valued family above all else, and that if they could find a way to be together despite everything, children would be a blessing. The night before they were to go to the village, Jonas lay awake in his bed, nervous energy keeping him restless. He heard his door creak open and looked up to see Grash silhouetted in the doorway. "I cannot sleep," she said quietly. "Neither can I. Come here." She crossed the room and slid into bed beside him, her solid warmth immediately comforting. Jonas wrapped his arm around her shoulders and she rested her head on his chest, her black hair spilling across his shirt. "What if they attack us?" she asked. "What if they try to hurt you because of me? Then we defend ourselves together. But Grash, listen to me. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I do not regret any of this. Meeting you, caring for you, choosing you. If I could go back to the day of that storm, I would do everything exactly the same." She lifted her head to look at him, her amber eyes shining in the moonlight from the window. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me," she said fiercely. "And I will not let anyone hurt you. I swear it." Jonas kissed her, deep and tender, and felt her melt against him. They made love that night with a desperate sweetness, finding comfort and courage in each other's arms. And when Jonas finally fell asleep with Grash curled against his side, he felt ready to face whatever the next day would bring. The village of Millbrook sat in a broad valley about 2 hours' walk from Jonas's farm. It was market day when they arrived, the square full of farmers selling produce and craftsmen hawking their wares. Jonas felt the moment people noticed them, the ripple of shock and hostility that spread through the crowd. Conversations stopped. People stared. A few mothers pulled their children closer. Jonas held his head high and kept his hand in Grash's, leading her toward the fabric merchant's stall. If they were going to do this, they would do it properly. He needed new work shirts and Grash needed clothing that actually fit her. "Jonas Zimmerman," the fabric merchant said slowly, his eyes on Grash. "That is an orc." "That is Grash," Jonas corrected. "She works my farm with me." "We need fabric for new clothes. Do you have anything sturdy?" The merchant hesitated, clearly torn between prejudice and profit. Profit won. "I have good linen, and wool if you need warm clothing." They spent the next hour shopping, moving from stall to stall, enduring stares and whispers. Some merchants refused to serve them. Others served them, but with obvious reluctance. A few, though, were simply curious, asking questions about how an orc came to work for Jonas, what it was like. Jonas answered honestly, and Grash spoke when spoken to, her voice calm and dignified. It was when they stopped at the baker's stall that real trouble found them. A group of young men, probably militia members by their matching leather vests, approached with ugly expressions. "Zimmerman," the leader said, a tall man named Robert who Jonas remembered from school. "We heard rumors you were harboring a green skin, wanted to see if it was true." "I am not harboring anyone," Jonas said evenly. "Grash works for me. We are here to shop, same as everyone else." "Same as everyone else," Robert laughed harshly. "She is orc scum, an animal." You should not be parading her around like she is people. Grash's hand tightened on Jonas's, but she kept her face neutral. Jonas, though, felt anger rising hot in his chest. She is more people than you are, Robert. She works hard, keeps her word, and treats others with respect. Can you say the same? Robert's face flushed dark red. You have lost your mind. She has enchanted you somehow, put some kind of spell on you. The only thing she has done is show me kindness and loyalty, but I can see you would not recognize those qualities if they hit you in the face. The crowd had grown quiet, everyone watching the confrontation. Jonas was acutely aware that he and Grash were surrounded, outnumbered, but he was done backing down, done apologizing for caring about someone just because she was different. You want to know the truth? Jonas said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. Grash saved my life. Raiders attacked my farm last week, 5 of them. She fought beside me and kept me alive. She has been nothing but honorable and good, and I am proud to stand with her. So if you have a problem with that, Robert, then you have a problem with me. Robert stepped forward, his hand on his knife. Maybe I do have a problem with you, Zimmerman. Maybe we all do. You are a traitor to your own kind. And you are a coward who hides his fear behind hatred. Jonas stepped forward too, putting himself between Robert and Grash. If you want to fight, then fight me, but leave her alone. For a tense moment, violence hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Then a new voice cut through the crowd. That is enough, Robert. An older man pushed through the throng. Someone Jonas recognized as Elder Thomas, one of the village council members. He was white-haired and stern, with the kind of authority that came from decades of respected leadership. This is none of your concern, Elder, Robert said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. When militia members threaten violence in my market square, it is absolutely my concern. Elder Thomas looked at Jonas, then at Grash, his weathered face unreadable. Jonas Zimmerman. I knew your mother. She was a good woman, a kind woman. She taught you well, I see. Jonas blinked, surprised. Elder. I do not pretend to understand this. The old man gestured at Jonas and Grash together. But I do understand that you stood up for what you believe in, even knowing it would cost you. That takes courage. He turned to the crowd. We are all scared. These are frightening times, with raids and rumors of war. But fear makes us cruel, and cruelty makes us less than we should be. If Jonas Zimmerman says this orc woman has earned his trust, then I am inclined to believe him. The Zimmermans have always been honest folk. But Elder, Robert protested, she is an orc. We cannot just judge an entire people by the actions of a few, Elder Thomas interrupted firmly. I am old enough to remember when there was trade between humans and orcs before the wars poisoned everything. Maybe it is time we remembered that we are all trying to live on this earth together. He looked at Grash directly. What is your name, young one? Grash met his eyes steadily. Grash, Elder. My clan cast me out for showing mercy to a human child. I have been alone since then, until Jonas gave me work and shelter. You saved a child. Yes, a little girl lost in the mountains. I brought her home. Her parents called the militia. Elder Thomas shook his head slowly. Then shame on them and honor to you. Anyone who saves a child is worthy of respect, regardless of what color their skin is. He turned back to the crowd. Jonas and Grash are welcome in Millbrook, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with the council. Now, I believe we all have shopping to do. Move along. The crowd dispersed slowly, and Robert and his friends slunk away, their bluster deflated. Jonas felt weak with relief, his hands shaking as he held onto Grash's. Thank you, Elder, he managed. Thank your mother. She helped my wife when she was ill years ago, never asked for payment or praise. I owe the Zimmerman family a debt, and I pay my debts. The old man smiled faintly. Though I will admit you are testing the limits of that debt, boy, be careful. Not everyone will be as understanding as I am. I know, but I cannot be anything other than honest. Then good luck to you both. You will need it. They finished their shopping in a more subdued atmosphere, and as they walked home through the afternoon sun, Jonas felt Grash lean against him. That was terrifying, she said quietly. Yes, but we did it. We stood together and we did not back down. Elder Thomas was kind. I did not expect that. Neither did I. Maybe there is hope after all. Maybe not everyone is like Robert. Grash stopped walking and turned to face him, her expression serious. Jonas, I need to tell you something. I am falling in love with you. I think I have been for weeks. And it scares me, because I know how hard this will be, but I cannot help it. You have become everything to me. Jonas felt his throat tighten with emotion. I am already in love with you, he said roughly. I think I fell the moment you tried to stand up despite that wound, so fierce and brave. I love your strength and your honesty and the way you talk to the pigs. I love how you make me laugh and how you make me think. I love you, Grash, and I do not care who knows it. She kissed him right there on the road, heedless of who might see, and Jonas kissed her back with everything he had. When they broke apart, they were both smiling, giddy with the courage of their confession. The next few months were not easy. Robert and his militia friends made several attempts to cause trouble, trying to scare Grash away or intimidate Jonas into giving her up. But each time, they found the couple prepared and unyielding. Elder Thomas proved to be a surprising ally, quietly making it known that the Zimmerman farm was under his protection. A few other families, outcasts in their own ways, began to reach out with cautious friendship. Grash proved to be an invaluable partner in every sense. She expanded the pig operation with such efficiency that Jonas was able to sell more at market. She built a chicken coop and started raising layers. She even negotiated a deal with a traveling orc merchant for seeds and tools that humans would not sell to them, opening up new possibilities for the farm. At night, they shared a bed and dreamed together of the future. Grash's nightmares about being cast out grew less frequent. Jonas stopped waking in the middle of the night fearing he would find her gone. They built something real and solid, a partnership based on trust and affection and shared purpose. It was late autumn when Grash came to Jonas with a strange expression on her face. They were sitting by the fire after dinner, and she had been unusually quiet all evening. "What is wrong?" Jonas asked, reaching for her hand. "Nothing is wrong, at least I do not think it is." She took a breath. Jonas, in orc culture, when two people want to be together permanently to make a family, there is a bonding ceremony. It is like a marriage, but with different rituals. I have been thinking about it for weeks, and I want that with you if you want it too. Jonas's heart began to pound. You want to marry me? I want to bind my life to yours, yes, in the orc way if you will have me. Have you? Jonas laughed, pulling her close. Grash, there is nothing I want more, yes, 1,000 times yes. She released a breath that was almost a sob and buried her face in his neck. I was so nervous to ask. I thought you might think it was too soon or too strange. It is probably both, Jonas admitted, but I do not care. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Tell me about this bonding ceremony. What do we need to do? Grash explained that in orc culture, bonding involved an exchange of gifts that represented what each person brought to the partnership. The ceremony itself was witnessed by the community and sealed with the couple's blood mixed together, a symbol of two lives becoming one. But I have no community here, Grash said sadly. My clan cast me out. There is no one to witness for me. Then we will make our own community, Jonas declared. Elder Thomas and his wife, the baker who started selling to us, the family from the next valley who invited us to dinner last month. People who have shown us kindness, and we will invite any orc who will come too. This bonding will be between our peoples, a bridge." Grash looked at him with wonder. "You would do that? Make it a statement like that? Why not? We have been making statements since the day we met. Might as well make this one count." They spent the next month preparing. Jonas carved Grash a beautiful set of farming tools, each handle etched with symbols of growth and abundance. Grash forged Jonas a new knife with a blade of folded steel, the kind orcs made that never dulled. She also made him a leather bracelet woven with her own hair, an orc tradition that signified permanent bond. Word of the bonding ceremony spread, and the reactions were mixed. Some humans thought Jonas had truly lost his mind. But others, perhaps inspired by his courage or simply tired of hatred, expressed cautious support. To Jonas's surprise, 3 orc families reached out, saying they had heard of Grash and her story, and they wanted to witness her bonding. The ceremony took place on the first day of winter, on the farm where their love had begun. Elder Thomas agreed to preside, using a mixture of human and orc traditions. About 30 people attended, a strange mix of species and backgrounds, all of them drawn by curiosity or hope, or the simple desire to see something new in a world grown stale with old conflicts. Jonas and Grash stood before them in their finest clothes, holding hands, as Elder Thomas spoke about the courage it took to love across divides, about the hope that love represented. Then it was time for the exchange of gifts. Jonas presented his tools first. "I give you these tools so we can build our life together, grow our farm together, and create something lasting and good." Grash accepted them with tears in her eyes, then presented her gifts. "I give you this knife for protection, and this bracelet as a piece of myself, so you will always carry me with you. My life is yours, my strength is yours, my heart is yours." Elder Thomas produced a small ritual knife, cleaned and blessed. "Now, by the traditions of both our peoples, we seal this bond with blood. Let no one break what is joined here today." Jonas and Grash each made a small cut on their palms and clasped hands, their blood mingling. Grash spoke the orc bonding words, her voice strong and clear. Jonas repeated human vows, promising to love and honor her all his days. And then it was done. They were bonded, married in the eyes of both their peoples, a union that should have been impossible. The gathering erupted in applause, and Jonas kissed his wife as the sun broke through the winter clouds, bathing them all in golden light. There was food and drink after, and music provided by an enterprising orc who played a strange stringed instrument. Humans and orcs mingled awkwardly at first, then with growing ease as the celebration wore on. Children from both species ended up playing together in the yard, their laughter a sweet sound. As the sun set and their guests began to depart, Elder Thomas pulled Jonas aside. "You have done something remarkable here today, boy. You have shown that bridges can be built, that old hatreds need not define us. I hope you know that." "I just married the woman I love," Jonas said simply. "And in doing so, you may have changed the world, at least this small corner of it." The old man clasped his shoulder. "Be happy, Jonas Zimmerman, you have earned it." That night, alone at last in their home, Jonas and Grash lay entwined in their bed, exhausted and elated. "We did it," Grash whispered. "We are actually bonded, married. I can barely believe it." "Believe it," Jonas said, kissing her forehead. "You are stuck with me now, Grash Zimmerman." She laughed, the sound full of joy. "Grash Zimmerman, I like how that sounds." "So do I." They made love slowly that night, savoring each touch, each kiss, the profound intimacy of 2 people who had chosen each other despite everything. Afterward, Grash traced the scar on Jonas's arm from the raider attack, her touch gentle. "I have been thinking," she said, "about children. about what Elder Thomas said about building bridges. If we have children, they will be half human, half orc. They will belong to both worlds and neither. That will be hard for them. Jonas considered this. It will be hard, he agreed, but they will also be loved. And they will grow up knowing that love is stronger than hate, that people can choose to be better than their prejudices. That is a gift, Grash. That is something worth giving them. Then you want children. With me. I want everything with you. Children, if we are blessed. A long life together. Growing old on this farm, watching the seasons turn, building something that lasts. He cupped her face in his hands. You are my family now, Grash. You are my home. Everything else is just details. She kissed him fiercely, and they held each other until sleep claimed them both. Two people who had defied the world and won. Winter passed into spring, and spring into summer. The farm thrived under their joint care, becoming known throughout the region as a place where quality livestock could be purchased, and where people of all kinds were treated fairly. Jonas and Grash became something of a local legend, the human and orc who had dared to love each other. Some saw them as heroes, others as fools, but no one could deny that they were happy. More mixed couples began to emerge, encouraged by Jonas and Grash's example. A human woman bonded with an orc craftsman. An orc woman married a human merchant. It was not a flood, not a revolution, but it was a beginning. The militant humans like Robert grew quieter, their influence waning as more people chose curiosity over fear. In midsummer, Grash came to Jonas with news that made his heart soar. She was pregnant, their child growing inside her, a tiny life that represented everything they had fought for. Jonas wept with joy and held her gently, already protective of the precious cargo she carried. We will need to expand the house, he said, laughing through his tears. And build a proper crib, and learn everything about raising children. We will figure it out together, Grash said, her hand on her still flat belly. We always do. The pregnancy was not easy. Grash suffered terrible sickness in the early months, and there were times when Jonas feared for both her and the baby. But she was strong, her orc constitution pulling her through, and as the months passed, she bloomed with health and happiness. Her belly grew round and full, and Jonas found himself constantly marveling at the life they had created. Their child was born on a crisp autumn morning, almost exactly a year after their bonding ceremony. The labor was long and difficult, with Grash's orc midwife friend working tirelessly while Jonas paced and worried. But finally, a baby's cry split the air, and Jonas was ushered into the bedroom to meet his daughter. She was perfect. Tiny and red-faced and perfect, with her mother's green skin but lighter, more like spring leaves than forest depths. Her little ears came to gentle points. She had no tusks yet, the midwife explained. Those would come later if she followed orc development, but her features were a beautiful blend of both her parents. Jonas held her with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face while Grash watched with exhausted pride. What should we name her? Grash asked softly. Jonas thought of his mother who had taught him kindness. He thought of Elder Thomas who had given them a chance. He thought of all the people who had shown them grace when they could have shown hate. Hope, he said. Let us call her Hope, because that is what she is. Hope for a better future. Grash smiled, radiant despite her exhaustion. Hope Zimmerman, it is perfect. The baby grew strong and healthy, a happy child who delighted in everything she saw. She had her mother's fierce spirit and her father's gentle heart, and she was loved beyond measure by everyone who knew her. Human and orc visitors alike came to see the child who bridged two worlds, and Hope greeted them all with gurgling laughter and grasping hands. As Hope learned to crawl, then walk, then run through the farmyard, Jonas and Grash watched with profound gratitude. They had built this life from nothing, from a stormy night and a desperate moment of kindness. They had faced hatred and fear and overcome it with nothing but love and stubbornness. And now they had a daughter who would never know the loneliness they had known, who would grow up surrounded by love and acceptance. One evening, when Hope was nearly 2 years old, Jonas and Grash sat on their porch watching their daughter play with the piglets in the yard. The sun was setting in brilliant golds and oranges, painting the valley in warm light. "Do you ever regret it?" Jonas asked quietly. "Leaving your clan, bonding with me, all of it." Grash leaned her head on his shoulder, her hand finding his. "Never, not for a single moment. You gave me a home when I had none. You gave me love when I thought I would never have it. You gave me hope in every sense of the word." She squeezed his hand. "What about you? Do you regret pulling me out of that storm?" Jonas watched his daughter laugh as a piglet licked her face, watched his wife glow in the sunset light, and felt a peace so profound it took his breath away. "That storm brought me everything I never knew I needed," he said. "It brought me you. It brought me our family. It brought me a purpose beyond just surviving." He turned to kiss her temple. "Lightning split the sky and I pulled you inside before you could refuse, and it was the best decision I ever made." Grash smiled, that fierce, beautiful smile he had fallen in love with. "Then we are both lucky, you and I." "The luckiest." They sat together as the stars came out, watching their daughter play, feeling the solid warmth of their home behind them and the promise of tomorrow ahead. The world was still full of conflict and prejudice, still far from perfect. But here, on this small farm in the borderlands, two people had proven that love could overcome hatred, that bridges could be built one choice at a time. And as Hope ran to them with mud on her clothes and joy in her mixed heritage face, Jonas and Grash gathered her close and knew they had created something that would last. A family, a home, a hope for a better future. The farm continued to thrive as the seasons turned. By the time Hope was 5, she had become a familiar sight in Millbrook Village, charming shopkeepers with her bright curiosity and her unique blend of human and orc features. Some children were forbidden by their parents to play with her, but others embraced her freely. And gradually the sight of green-skinned children playing alongside human ones became less shocking. Jonas expanded the farm further, hiring workers of both species who needed jobs and treating them all fairly. Grash became known as a skilled healer, her knowledge of orc medicine combined with human herbs making her valuable to the whole community. When sickness came to the valley, it was Grash who moved from house to house, treating the ill regardless of their species or whether they had previously shown her kindness or scorn. Her compassion changed minds that no amount of arguing could have swayed. People who had called her monster wept with gratitude when she saved their children from fever. Families who had refused to acknowledge her existence showed up at the farm with gifts and apologies. Slowly, painfully, the community began to change. Elder Thomas passed away when Hope was 7, but before he died, he told Jonas that seeing their family had been one of the great joys of his final years. "You proved an old man wrong," he said with a smile. "I thought our peoples would always be enemies. But you and Grash showed me that love is stronger than hate if people are brave enough to choose it. Thank you for that gift." His funeral brought together more humans and orcs than had gathered in one place for a generation. All of them united in respect for a man who had dared to support an impossible love. As Hope grew older, she asked questions about why she looked different from other children, why some people stared or whispered. Jonas and Grash answered honestly, explaining the history of conflict between their peoples, but also emphasizing that she was proof things could be different. "You are not less than anyone," Grash told her daughter fiercely. "You are more because you carry the best of both worlds in you. You are strong and kind and smart, and anyone who cannot see that is blind." "Your mother is right," Jonas added. "You are exactly who you are supposed to be, Hope. And we are so proud of you." Hope took their words to heart, growing into a confident young woman who moved easily between human and orc communities. She learned farming from her father and combat from her mother. She learned human customs and orc traditions. And she dreamed of a day when no child would have to choose between two halves of themselves, when being mixed would be celebrated rather than questioned. Other mixed children began to appear in the region, born to couples who had been inspired by Jonas and Grash's example. Hope became a big sister of sorts to them all, defending them from bullies and teaching them to be proud of their heritage. A new generation was rising, one that had never known the rigid divisions of the past. On Hope's 10th birthday, Jonas and Grash threw a celebration that drew people from 3 valleys. Human and orc families mingled freely now, sharing food and stories. Children of all kinds played together without a second thought. And as Jonas watched his daughter laugh with her friends, he caught Grash's eye across the yard and saw his own wonder reflected there. "We did this," she mouthed at him. "We did," he mouthed back and felt his heart swell with pride. That night, after the guests had departed and Hope had fallen asleep exhausted and happy, Jonas and Grash lay together in their bed, the moonlight streaming through the window. "I have been thinking," Grash said quietly, "about writing down our story. About making sure people remember how this all started, so that future generations know it was not always easy, that it took courage and choice." Jonas considered this. "You want to write our history. I want our daughter to understand what we overcame to build this life. I want other couples like us to know they are not alone, and I want people to remember that change is possible, even when it seems impossible." She turned to look at him. "Will you help me?" "Of course. We will write it together like we do everything." So they began, spending evenings recounting their story while Hope asked endless questions. Jonas wrote in his neat farming script while Grash provided details he had forgotten, the narrative taking shape between them. They recorded everything from that first storm-drenched meeting to the raider attack to their bonding ceremony to Hope's birth and beyond. It took them a year to complete, and when they were done, they had a thick journal filled with their journey. They made copies and distributed them to libraries in human and orc communities, a testament to what love and courage could accomplish. The story spread, becoming a kind of legend. Songs were written about the pig farmer who defied prejudice for love. Poems celebrated the orc woman who chose compassion over hatred. And everywhere, people began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the old divisions did not have to define the future. Jonas and Grash lived to see their grandchildren, born to Hope and her orc human husband, a kind man who worked as a teacher and shared their vision of a united community. They lived to see the first mixed heritage person elected to the regional council. They lived to see human and orc children learning together in integrated schools, studying a history that no longer glossed over the contributions of either species. They grew old together on their farm, their bodies aging but their love only deepening with time. Grash's tusks grew more prominent, and Jonas's hair went white, but they still worked side by side every day, still shared their bed every night, still looked at each other with the wonder of that first impossible choice. On their 40th bonding anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren and friends of every description, Jonas stood and raised his cup in a toast. 40 years ago," he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "Lightning split the sky and I pulled an injured orc girl inside my home. I did not know then that I was pulling in my future wife, my partner, my greatest love. I did not know I was beginning a journey that would change not just my life but the lives of so many others. He looked at Grash, his eyes moist. I only knew that someone needed help and I could provide it. Everything else grew from that single moment of choice. Grash stood beside him, taking his hand. And I did not know that the strange human who stitched my wound would become my home, my family, my heart. I did not know that his kindness would heal more than just my body. I did not know that I would find in him everything I thought I had lost when my clan cast me out. She raised her own cup. But I am grateful every single day that the storm brought me to his door, that he chose love over fear, that we chose each other again and again, despite everything. To choices, Jonas said. To love, Grash added. To family, Hope called out, her own children clustered around her. To the future, someone else shouted, and the toast was echoed by every voice in the room, human and orc and mixed, all of them united by the example of two people who had dared to love across an impossible divide. That night, as Jonas and Grash prepared for bed, moving with the comfortable familiarity of 40 years together, Jonas paused to look at his wife in the lamplight. Her green skin was lined now, her black hair shot through with silver, but she was still the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what? For stumbling up my road in that storm, for trusting me when you had no reason to, for building this life with me, for everything." Grash crossed to him and cupped his weathered face in her strong hands. "Thank you for pulling me inside before I could refuse, for seeing me as a person when no one else would, for loving me even when it was hard, for giving me hope and a home and a reason to believe in goodness again." They kissed, tender and sweet, and then climbed into the bed they had shared for 4 decades. Outside, the wind picked up, bringing with it the scent of rain, and Jonas smiled at the memory of another storm so long ago. "You hear that?" he murmured. "The storm." "Yes." "It reminds me of the night we met." Grash snuggled closer to him, her head on his chest. "That storm changed everything. The best storms do." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, and dreamed of the life they had built together. A life that had started with a simple act of kindness in the face of a storm, and grown into something that changed their entire world. A life built on choice and courage and love that refused to be bound by old hatreds. And in the morning, when they woke to sunshine and the sound of their grandchildren playing in the yard, they knew with absolute certainty that every moment of struggle had been worth it. Every hard conversation, every confrontation with prejudice, every doubt and fear they had faced together had led them here, to this moment of profound peace and joy. Jonas Zimmerman, the pig farmer who had pulled an orc girl out of the storm, looked at his wife of 40 years and felt his heart overflow with gratitude. And Grash Zimmerman, the orc woman who had been given a second chance at family and belonging, smiled at her husband with a love that had only grown stronger with time. They had proven that the impossible was possible, that love could bridge any divide, that choosing compassion over fear could change the world one heart at a time. And as they walked out together to begin another day on their farm, surrounded by the family and community they had built, they knew their story would continue to inspire long after they were gone. The storm had brought them together, but it was their choices every day after that had built this life. And it was beautiful.